What's up, guys? Welcome back to Neckbeard Game Devs. Let's make a slot machine game in Unity and Blender. In this part of the tutorial, we're going to set up the first reel completely. We're going to do some initial tests, but we're going to get all the colliders set up, all the tags set up, and start sending over that collision info. So let's make a script. I'm just calling it collider control number 1. We got that in our Visual Studio. So what we're going to do is we're going to set up these tags. So we're going to add a bunch of tags. And basically we're going to add a tag for each individual image slot. So if we have 4 B7s, we're going to have B7-1, B7-2, very logical so that we know exactly which slot we're hitting. If we were to label all these B7, then they would all, unless we would check the rotation and then maybe figure out which rotation's the closest. But I think this is the most logical way to do the reels how I'm coding it. So basically, just label everything. You don't have to do exactly how I am. You can do B7A, B7B, but we're going to use these tags in the collision, so just make sure you're very logical in what you're putting this as. So now we got our red hot 7. So we have 3 of these. If you followed exactly how I did the images, then you should have the same amount of image slots. So you should have 4 B7s, 4 W7s, 3 red hot 7s, 2 double red hot 7s, 1 triple 7, and 1 bonus. So when you get all these done, you're not going to have to do them for each individual reel. Each individual collider script will know which reel it's on. So all these tags will just be done once. The code will actually only be written once, and then we'll either somehow in the collider script we have separate the colliders, or I'll probably write another script for the top and bottom colliders, a single script for each of those. So it'll be like a child script of the first collider, and it'll calculate the scores of each of those individual colliders, the top and bottom. So you get your initial center collider, turns on, calculates its score, and then turns on the other 2 game objects, and their collider scripts turn on, calculate their score, and then goes on to the second reel, unless a bonus comes up. Because if a bonus comes up, we want to do something. I'm just going through these, making sure getting all our tags right, setting all the tags. Like I said, we just want to make sure this makes sense so that when we're writing the code, we have an idea. If we were just to label them randomly, then we'd have a difficult time with this. So this is part of the collision info on any kind of game object, any kind of game. You can do a compare tag, and we go from there. All right, let's go ahead and pull this collider script on our middle collider. And let's get to coding our slot control for the quaternion so that we can control the rotation of the reel. Yes, we're going to use physics and torque to spin the reel, but when we stop the reel, it's not going to be in the perfect spot that we want it. So we're going to use a quaternion. I don't know if you've set quaternions like this before, so this might be something you would like to learn. We're just going to start off with a serialized field so we can see it in the editor. More than likely, this will have to go to a public because we'll need to change this from our collider script. But I just want to show you guys, different ways we can write the test, different ways you can use these kinds of Unity, specific code. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to set these quaternion fields with our angles of our image. When the reel is in the perfect spot every 24 degrees, we're going to set that quaternion angle into a vector 3. And then we'll be able to access that. So this is just some initial testing. I just want to make sure this is all working. And we're going to start this guy off here. You're going to set your left spinner rotations. We got 15 rotations. We have 15 faces. And see, it went ahead and it snagged. The Z rotation is what we're looking for. So it snagged that Z rotation. Let's write a little for loop, and then we'll fill in all these quaternion vector 3s with each of our, perfect rotation that we want. So this code will only be run one time. When we're setting up the game, we'll get that information, we'll copy the information and paste it right into the script. We'll copy it during gameplay and paste it right in the script. We'll have all that information. So let's add a public int. This could be a private int, or we could have made another serialized field, but like I said, this information will only need to be run once, and then we can comment it out or delete it. It'll actually be needed. It'll actually be needed to run for each reel once. And then after you have all 3 reels rotation information, then you could move on. But during this tutorial, this part of the tutorial, we're just going to set up the first reel. So we're going to do this quaternion Z int. We're going to add 24 each time. And then what we're going to do here is we're going to subtract that 24, subtract that quaternion Z int. So each time it's going to, add 24 to itself and then subtract it from the reels, our Z angle. Let's make this a little easier to read. All right, let's give it a shot. Let's see if it fills in all our 15 elements. Still only have the first one. What'd I forget? We just need the spinner rotation set for I. That should get us set up. All right, so on our z-axis, we should have all the different angles. My screen might have cut you out on that, but mine are all set 24 degrees different. So let's make a little test. Let's go ahead and spin this guy with this code that we wrote. So it should spin perfectly into each individual slot that we want, so that when we turn the collider on, then it'll read which collision information, which slot, and then it'll just slightly move that slot to the. So write yourself a little for loop. And you're going to use the left spinner rotation dot length. So we'll have 15 slots to fill, 15 slots to rotate to. So you're going to set your reals.transform.rotation to left spinner rotations I. So set your reals to 0.transform rotation left spinner rotations I. Let's give it a run. I saw him move, but it spun real quick. So grab this yield return new, and let's stick it within this for loop here. All right, let's give it a shot. So there we go. We're spinning one slot at a time. So our code is set. It works. Let's try it one more time. So that's another way you could spin these, if you wanted to like control the spin. You could run this in a for loop and do a wait for, 0.1 second or 0.3 seconds, and it would spin. And you would have a real exact idea of where you were going to stop at each time. You wouldn't have any issues with like where your machine, your real rotation would stop. So, but like how we're doing it with the rigid body rotation, I think it just gives it a more realistic look. And we're just using this code, to control that rotation at the very end. All right, let's get into our collider control script. Let's access the slot controls. Let's go ahead and remove this update for now. And we're going to do a void on trigger enter. I just went ahead and moved the find object of type to the on trigger enter, and then there's no start function either. It's just one little quick call. That's it. Let's do a switch here, and we're going to do GameObject.tag. I was thinking of doing compare tags as it's faster, but I'm not sure if we could get that to work with the switch. And what we're going to do is we're going to add all our tags in here. And this is where, when you labeled the tags in Unity, we wanted to make sure that we use something very logical that we could remember easy and access easy. So just copy and paste this and then change the B to a W. You could have taken a screenshot of these tags. It probably would have been a little quicker. I'm not sure why I didn't do that, but just going to go through the tags here and make sure all our tags are set properly. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at these tags and we're going to make sure that we're going to rotate if we hit this. If the collision info gives us this tag, we're going to make sure that we snap the reel back to the perfect spot. I know I've said this a bunch of times, but this is important to keep our machine running smoothly. So what I did is I took a screenshot of all our Z rotations. And what we're going to do is we're going to spin the reel to this rotation, check the tag of our icon, see if it's a B7 or a double red hot 7-1 or 2, and then we know that here at 66 degrees we're hitting the red hot 3, and that is our number 2 left, or number 1 left spinner rotation quaternions. So down here at red hot 7-3, we need to set this to that left spinner rotations 1. So now we're going to go to the 42 degrees. This is our W74. Now, like I said, this is going to have to be done for each individual reel, because if we keep the reels set up exactly the same, then the chances of winning go so skyrocketing high, and multiple wins. Because if it gets, spinning and then you hit the 7-7-7, you might have all 3 win lines all blocked off, and and that's not going to happen in a real slot game. So you'll have some different collider controls, different collision controls to rotate each individual reel correctly, but here we're just going to do this first one, and then I'm going to quickly show you how I did the second 2. And I'm going to kind of leave that up to you guys. I will show you guys how I did it and which ones I switched around, but I'm not going to keep that in the tutorial because that's probably a good, half hour of work to get those set up. But you're going to go through the same process. You're going to run, you're going to have a middle spinner rotation quaternion array, and you're going to run that code for the middle. You're going to get all the rotations, and then, depending on where you set your initial rotation is, your initial middle real score icon, where that is will be your 0. So it'll all make sense, and it'll all make a difference in the way that the reels operate. Now, I was thinking of a way to automate this, and since we're rotating a game object, more than likely we could have grabbed, with the rotations, we could have possibly grabbed the initial rotation of where it's at, like when it's centered. But this way, we're keeping it serialized and we're keeping it exact. We know what's going on here. We know what our rotations are. We're not leaving this all up to the computer. All right, let's go ahead and open our score calculator. We're going to create a string array. I'm just going to call it collider scores or Cole scores. Whatever you want, it really doesn't matter. Let's add some access to our slot control script. All right, so in here, what we're going to do is we're going to pass over this information, this collision information, to our score calculator. So let's access the score calculator so we can grab the Cole score string array. And what we're going to do here is we're just going to tell the collider score that we hit a B7. We don't need to tell it we hit B7-1 or B7-2. We just need to let it know we hit B7. Same with this. So now here we have to let it know it hit the white 7. All right, so now we got all our collider scores all set. I'm going to get rid of that, and we're going to go back to our normal spinning coroutine. We have our colliders being set to active. I'm going to turn this initial spin down to 5. 8 seconds seemed a little long. Let's go ahead and add the score calculator to our slot machine. And we're going to put the size at 9. We have a total of 9 colliders. So we're going to have 9 separate scores. It looks like I deleted the find object of type for our audio controls. So let's get that back in there. All right, so after testing, I changed up a couple things. And what I did is I added a score bool for left reel, like calculating the scores in our score calculator. Because what seemed to be happening was that when the reel would rotate, it was colliding again. The other mistake I saw, I had a 7 after my red hot tag in this collider control. The other major thing was that I forgot to comment out our initial testing, even though it says on there for initial testing. So you can see I turned the left reel calculator scores bool to false right after it stops spinning, and then return it true when the on trigger enter happens. All right, so let's give this a shot here. So we got red hot 7, and then you seen it snap back to the red hot 7. White 7. So we're all set up now. We have the first collider, our middle collider of the left reel, fully active, sending over the collision information. So now what we got to do is we're going to create another script, and it's going to be a child of this initial collider script. And that'll control the top and the bottom colliders. So there's our middle collider. It has the collider control number 1. I'm going to add these rigid bodies. They just make our collision information more exact. Pull that collider number 2 script into both the top and bottom. And what we're going to do is we're basically just going to copy this whole on trigger enter, and then we're going to remove the rotation. We don't need the rotation. So let's go ahead and delete all these real transforms. Okay, so what we need to add here is we're just going to do a public. We could do a serialized field. Let me get this straight here. We're going to add an integer. I just call it collider int. And then here we're just going to insert this collider int. So in our Unity editor, we're just going to have to set which collider it is. And remember, so 0 is our middle, 1 could be our top, 2 could be our bottom. But that's how we're going to keep it, and then we're going to keep it that way for the right and left reels also. And more than likely, we're going to add the collider int to the collider control number 1, so that we'll just tell it, this is our 0 collider, this is our 4 collider, this is our, 7 collider. Just fixing up the document a bit. We don't need to set the left real control or left score bool to true. We've already set that to true with our main collider, which is our middle collider. So don't forget to set your collider int to 1 and 2. Remember which ones those are. It'll make a difference when we start calculating the scores. So in our collider control number 1, let's call a game object array. Just call it colliders. So down here, after we figure out our score for this middle reel, let's do a little for loop. And then we'll just set these colliders set active to true. So then down here, after we figure out the score, we'll just set active to false. We don't want these coming on exact same time as our middle collider. We want it separate. So right here is the mistake. I didn't set the collider scores for the bonus to the collider int. I had it at 0. All right, so now let's give it a shot. Let's spin this guy. And there they are. We got our red hot 7 in the middle, our bonus at number 1, our white 7 at number 2. Got our white 7 for our main slot, red hot 7 on top, blue 7 on the bottom. I think we're in business, fellas. Well, I hope you enjoyed this part of the tutorial. On the next part, we'll be, like I said, I'm going to get the other 2 reels done. I'm going to do a quick video on those, and then we'll start coding the actual score calculator. And you could kind of see how I'm getting the information over to the score calculator. Now we'll just have to check each individual spot, see if they match. If they do, then we have a reward system. All right, guys. Hope you're healthy. Hope you're having a great day. Neckbeard out.